right now.
The Army Reserve Knowledge Management. Next slide, Jake. Up on your screen is our team. Mr. Padone is the PM, myself is the deputy, and then Miss Tiffany Adams is our lead training instructor. John Ammons and Miss Jacqueline McCrory are our, I can't say her last name today, are our training experts, and then Mr. Alex Carlton is our trainer developer. This is our team for knowledge management. If you guys have any questions, and ladies as well, have any questions or any concerns or anything to do with knowledge management, we ask that you email the bottom box right there. That is our group mailbox. We all will get it. That way it's not limited to one person. If one person happens to not be at their desk, your question doesn't sit. Or the preferred method is the support page. If you go out to the support page and input a support ticket, then that also gets notified and will be assigned appropriately. So please utilize one of those questions. Today we're going to be covering Microsoft Access. This is for personnel that have very limited knowledge, understanding, and experience with database management systems and Microsoft Access. It's introduction only, and there will be very little hands-on time. We've discussed that we will, in the future, have a level 2, level 3, where we get it actually into the objects of an MS Access database. Our objective is to introduce Microsoft Access and its capabilities to you. And then I'm going to tell you a little difference between Microsoft Access and Microsoft Excel. Because a lot of people like to use Excel for what we should be using Access for. And then our benefit, of course, is to introduce Access to you guys and ladies, the personnel out in the field, to help you utilize the programs that are out there to manipulate, update, and search your data. Make collaboration easier by making the data easier to find. Next slide. So today we're going to discuss what is Microsoft Access. Then I'm going to discuss a little bit of differences between Excel, because we all use Excel right now, and Access. And then a couple of statements, understanding. Need to cover what a relational database is and how it works. This is very important in the inner workings in Microsoft Access. And then we're going to discuss the 4 objects in Microsoft Access. And then a couple last minute notes. We're going to open for questions. I do want to let you guys know, if you have any questions as I am going through this, come on in. If you have any questions, please speak up. All right? Don't wait till the end. If there's a subject we're covering right now and then you have a question on it, go ahead, raise your hand, speak up. If you're, I do ask the people in the room as well as the personnel on the net and on the conference to identify yourself, who you are, and then go ahead with your question or your statement. All right. What is Microsoft Access? Lots of words on this slide. Microsoft Access 2013 is a database creation and management program. For the 1 or 2 techies that are out there, the nerds, this is our home version of SQL database. And to understand Access, you have to understand databases. What a database is, it's a collection of data that's stored in a computer system. Databases allow users to enter, access, and analyze data quickly and easily. If you're familiar with other programs, you might be using Excel for data manipulation. We'll discuss that more. You're going to learn that I am, like Tiffany is anti-folders, I am anti-Excel for data manipulation, because Access can do so much more. And once you start getting your fingers wet, you're going to start thirsting for that knowledge, and you're going to be doing stuff in the background that's going to make you look superstar. All right. If a database is essentially a collection of lists stored in tables, then why can't I use Excel? Excellent question. Glad you asked that, Major McCoy. Well, it's because Excel is designed for organizing numbers and numerical data. If you ever notice, when you go into your functions in Excel, it's sum, add, it's divide, it's cosine. Very little is out there for data. Access is far stronger at handling non-numerical data, like names, descriptions, email lists, all types of stuff. And non-numerical data plays a significant role in any database. Name me something that you track is nothing but numbers. Is there anything? It's nothing but numbers. That's where I need the cricket sound. Correct. I'm getting that head shaking, and I'm guessing 20 of you are shaking your head no online as well, because nothing we track is just numbers. I don't have a spreadsheet that has just numbers. I have non-numerical data with that. I do have a name, and then I have a position number, which might be a number, or I have a name and a phone number, or I have a name and a cost for that name, or a piece of equipment. For those that's gone through John Ammons' Excel class, he talks about, I think, pants, and the number of pants and the size of pants. In Excel, he is showing you non-numerical data and numerical data. All right? Access is preferred method for data manipulation, and Excel is preferred method for number crunching. Any questions on that?
Master Sergeant Johnson said you were a little rough by calling people nerds.
By calling them what?
Nerds.
Sorry, Sergeant Johnson, but you're a nerd like me. Because you know what SQL stands for, so you're a nerd. All right, so the next slide, we have a table of the difference between Excel and Access. Both of them are easy to understand. After this, you'll understand a little more about Access. It's easy to create multiple columns in Excel, enter your data, and create formulas. Access, it's easy to create multiple tables, multiple columns, enter your data, and then query and output to reports. So there's a little bit difference there. Excel is a terrific tool for maintaining small sets of information. Believe it or not, Excel is limited to 1,048,576 rows. All right? Now, a little bit later, I'm going to ask a question. Can you imagine trying to go through 1 million rows looking for a piece of information? Because not all the time, Control-F doesn't always work. In Access, you're allowed up to 2 gigabytes per table. Now, if you remember, I just said that you can have multiple tables in an Excel or Access database. So you're allowed 2 gigabytes per table in Access. In both of them, you can sort, filter, and format the data. We all know Excel is easy to do. Access, beginning-wise, a little bit harder. But then once you, like I said, once you get your finger wet and you start thirsting for that knowledge, Mr. Google is our friend on a lot of stuff, right? So, Excel, excellent tool for number data management, and Access is an excellent tool for number and text or non-numerical data management. Excel is very easy to introduce errors. I'm going to show that a little bit later, which then makes your analysis, your summing, and your reporting harder. Where in Access, we can limit, we can validate what people put in, and we can make sure that only one record is put in. So later on, you'll see I have an example of this. In Excel, you cannot add attachments to the spreadsheets. You can add links to attachments or links to other things you want, but what happens when that link is moved or your Excel spreadsheet goes from the extranet to your shared folder or your shared drive. Those links break. But in Access, you can add attachments, and then they're incorporated into the database, which means if I take that database and I move it from a shared drive to a CD to Sergeant Johnson, a 3.5-inch floppy drive, us old timers, or even a 3.5, a 5.25, anywhere you put this database, those attachments are going to be in with that database. So if I build a database and I add a bunch of attachments and then I send it to Major McCoy, and Major McCoy opens that database on his machine, all those attachments are still going to be in there. So it's incorporated in. In Excel, your output is limited to more or less the view of your spreadsheet and charts. So you can't easily make a pretty output. But in Access, you can create multiple reports from any amount of the data, and you can format those reports to look and feel however you want. In Excel, if I have a couple records of Major McCoy, and I have an example of this later, and some data for him, if I have 3 lines of data for Major McCoy, then I'm going to have to go in and change each 3 line with the data. Each occurrence needs to be changed. Where in Access, Relational Database, it's going to know that that information belongs to Major McCoy, and I only need to change a piece of information once, and then it's going to go through. In Access, you and others working in your database only change a single record, and then any related item will automatically see the change. So Major McCoy gets promoted tomorrow, and instead of having to go into my Excel spreadsheet and saying through 3 or 4 lines or search for McCoy Major and change it to McCoy Mr., that is a promotion, Lieutenant Colonel, and looking and searching, I go into my Access where I find his 1 personnel record and I change it. And then any other piece of data that's linked to his in my reports, forms, and outputs is going to automatically show that change. And it's immediate. So if we're sharing a database on a shared drive and I do it, as soon as he refreshes or changes screen, it's going to show it. All right? It's not like co-authoring where you have to be in the web app and then you have to refresh. It's nothing like that. And in relational databases, I've been pounding this as well, only 1 record to change. Once again, if he gets promoted and I have to change his personnel record, I only change 1 spot in his record. I don't have to go through multiple records. Correct. Sergeant Johnson adds an APAN that there's no check-in and check-out of the file or the cell. That is correct. Any other questions, comments? Anybody have anything to say the difference between Excel and Access?
Access.
I got crickets ready.
All right, here's my example of an Excel spreadsheet. And if you look on the left-hand side, we have some bad data in there. All right, and this happens all the time. In my example that I give a little bit later, or maybe I don't, but I want to now, is rank. Is when I have a spreadsheet and I say fill in the rank, somebody's going to put major, somebody's going to put capital MAJ, somebody's going to put small MAJ, a big M, little AJ, or they're going to put in their A grade 04, or they're going to put in FA 53, because some people just can't consider what a rank is. So what you're going to do is in Excel, we have the same data. If you look at line 3 and line, I think that's 12, it's the same data, but it's put in differently. So now when we go to do our reporting, we're going to have duplicate that we have to go through and then combine them. Duplicate values can lead to mistakes, cost you time and money, like accidentally duplicating the order number. So in this case, they have 2 order 124s. And hopefully in the real world, If you're doing an ordering system, you're not going to have two of the same order numbers. All right? Access is going to validate and make sure that that doesn't happen. And missing data and inconsistencies, and then lack of controls. In Access, we can control what people put in. We can validate. We can make sure that a phone number is put in 10 characters with a hyphen, makes it 11. A space is 12, two parentheses is 14. And here's the format that I want. I can validate that a date is put in 7/26/1965 versus July 26, 1965. All right? And we can force people to put data into a field. So if you look on line 13, there's a blank.
Went to everyone.
Mm-hmm. So they couldn't read it.
Okay.
So that is what we get in Excel. In Access, we can eliminate all this by using input validation, by using indexing, and by drop downs and selections. Any questions? You guys good out in the field? Give me hands up, hand raised.
2 hand raises, 3 hand raises, 4 hand raises,
All
5
right.
hand raises.
That means at least 7 people are paying attention.
Good.
Thank
well.
you. See,
Now we gotta acknowledge all these hand raises.
next slide. All right, thank you for doing that. So now, once again, I'm going to go back to understanding Microsoft Access. So the easiest way to understand a database is a collection of lists, a shopping list, a to-do list. You write it down on a piece of paper. This instance, I'm using cookies and people. Let's say I like to bake cookies. I don't really like to bake, but I love to eat cookies, okay? So I'm going to say that I have a list. I have a list of friends and family members and a list of cookies. So I would have 2 lists. And now I want to use my Access database, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to create, if you look under all Access objects, there's my 2 lists. So I have my 2 lists. It's the same as what your to-do list or whatever is, okay? Same as what you do in Excel. You have a spreadsheet with information. That is your list. Next slide. Access is going to create 2 lists. In Excel, I sort of have to break it out. And once again, I did this deliberately. There are errors in my Excel spreadsheet. Just to show that there's simple errors. So in my spreadsheet at the bottom, I have my name and the type of cookie people like. Some people like 2, some people like 3, some people don't like any. And then somebody, my ghost, likes chocolate chip. All right, so there's errors in my spreadsheet. Now, next slide. If we're talking a professional baker, then you're going to have more lists, right? We're going to have a list of customers, a list of the cookies that we make, a list of the prices. Thank you, Sergeant Johnson. We're going to have a list of orders. We're going to have more lists. The more lists we have, the more complex your database is going to be. In Excel, it's hard to take your products listing and relate it to your orders listing or your customer listing or your price listing. All right? Access, it's easily done. So the bigger and the more the lists, come on in, sir. The bigger and the more the list, the more complex your database is going to be. Next slide. So I compared the lists that you make to Access to the ones you write on paper. Of course, the ones in Access are going to be a little bit more complex. Access stores its lists in what we call tables. And tables are broken out, you store more information. So in this table on the bottom of this screen, we have our people list. It's got a name of somebody, a cell phone, a birthday, and oh, you know what? Some of these people are allergic to nuts. I want to get a birthday cookie, but if I'm allergic to nuts, I don't want to get a peanut cookie, right? Unless you're on that list of he who gets the peanut cookie. Take this information, you go to the next one, and we're going to make it real simple. This is an output from a Microsoft Access. This is a report. This took me a matter of about, bless you, about 2 minutes to make. The reports that we create in Access, believe it or not, are just a little bit harder to make than your views in SharePoint. You know how Tiffany talks about the different views for different things, especially when using metadata. When she talks about using metadata, you want to have views certain ways, so you build a view. This is a report. It's the same concept. Your report is going to pull out the data. Now, this report happens to be built from a query. And the query is one of the objects we'll cover a little bit later. This information I pull out and I ask my database to give me certain things, and then I can take this data and I can manipulate it any way I want. Where in Excel, I'm sort of limited either by a format function or by a, what are they called? Equals XXX. I just dropped the word. So I'm limited in Excel, but in Access, I can build the report to look any way I want. Everything on a report is customizable. Relational database. So relational databases are able to understand how lists and objects within them relate to one another. To get my birthday roster, I needed to utilize my people list and my cookies list. And I had to somehow say that cookie A is liked by person A. In this case, Tiffany likes chocolate chip cookies. Okay? Using that example, you would create, in Excel, you would have to create either another column or a way to track it. Where in Excel, we had the two lists, and we take those two lists and we create an output. Next slide. The list uses words that appear, this current list, that one there with Tiffany. List 1 was customer name. List 2 was chocolate chip. So it uses the information from the previous two or our two main lists to pull in. And because it's a relational database, I had told it that Tiffany likes chocolate chip cookies and that John or somebody else likes a different kind. And it's maintained in the list. And relational database makes them equal each other. Now in Excel, this is hard, very hard to do. And unless you are a very well-versed VB scripter, it is impossible to do in Excel. It seems like it's common sense to us. I look at a piece of paper and I write Tiffany's name if she likes chocolate chip cookies. It seems simple, all right? Imagine though if I had, 500 cookies and 100 friends. That list gets bigger and bigger and more complex. Access is going to break that out. Relational databases can recognize what a human recognizes. So you sit there and you look at a list and say, well, this makes sense. List 1, list 2 combined makes sense. Access can go ahead and they can do that. The fact that relational databases can handle information this way allows you to enter, search, analyze, and manipulate data in more than one table at a time. So if I have multiple spreadsheets, I have to go from worksheet 1 to worksheet 2 to worksheet 3. In Access, I can do it all from an input form and look at multiple tables of data in one form and update as needed. In Access, even more complicated tasks have been simplified and made extremely user-friendly. Once again, once you get your fingers wet and you start playing, you're going to get thirsty for the knowledge, and then you're going to want to drink from the cup. What makes an MS Access database? 4 objects. Tables, which we talked a little about, queries, forms, and reports. And together, these 4 objects allows you to enter, store, analyze, and compile your data any way you want. So in Tiffany's metadata example, Kurt here wants to see the birthday list by by month. Jackie wants to see it by cookie type, and John wants to see it by name. In Excel, if you're on the conference, can you please make your line? In Excel, you would have to create 3 different worksheets or attempt to pull this data from 3 different ways by utilizing formulas. In Access, I've already pulled it in a query, or it's already out there in the table. I just build a report how I want to view. So tables. A database is a collection of data organized into many connected tables. All data is stored in tables. All data is stored in tables. So that is the heart of our database. And then it's columns and rows. It's like our SharePoint list. It's columns and rows. In Access, rows and columns are referred to as records and fields. A field is more than just a column. It's a way of organizing information by the type of data. So every piece of information in that field is the same type. So I'm going to say customer name. Everything in there is going to be a customer name. Cell phone. Everything's going to be a cell phone. Birthday. Everything's going to be a date. You're not going to have where your input in an Excel spreadsheet, if I hit tab twice instead of once, I might now start putting cell phones in a birthday. All right? In the Excel, it's hard to validate and make that correct. A record is more than just a row. It's a unit of information. Every cell in a given row is part of that record. So those fields across ID number, customer name, cell phone, birthday, and nut allergy, every field for one row is a record. And each record spans several fields. Even though the information in each record is organized into fields, which is our columns, it belongs to the row. And the number on the left, the ID number, that is an automatic. As long as you do not delete or turn off the ability when you open up or create a table, it's going to give you an ID. And that is used for indexing as well as relational, and only one number is going to be at a time. So there's only going to be 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. Forms, queries, and reports. Although tables store your data, these 3 offer ways to work with it. A form is used for entering, modifying, and viewing records. And the forms are you can create any form you want. If you want it to look like a spreadsheet, you can make it look like a spreadsheet. If you want it stepped, you want it columned, however you want it, you make it look like. That is how you view and update your data on your system. A query is the way of searching and compiling your data from one or more tables. And it's like asking a question. So when I built my query, can you go real quick to the next slide? When I built my query, across the top is my query. I asked it to provide me the people, the customer, or the ID, the name, the cell phone, the birthday, and the nut allergy. The cookie type. because I wanted my output to look a certain way, I had to build the next two columns. But I'm asking my Access database to provide me with this data. So when I query, go back one please. When I do a query, I'm asking a question of my database. Can I please have this name, this cell phone, this birthday? When you build a query in Access, you're defining specific search conditions. It's like when you go to Google and you search quote, USAR, KN, end quote, and knowledge management, you're going to get USAR, KN as a whole, and then any knowledge, any management. As long as those forms are together. Queries are the same way. When you do it, you're defining specific search conditions. And then a report is the ability to present your data in print. And you can create a report from any table or query. So back to the next slide. So I built my query, and I said, this is what I want, and I got it. And then I asked for my report, and I built my report. This is my birthday listing. Now, the reason I know everybody loves to have the birthday months in order. If I did not, across the top, get the birthday month number and make it ascending, then that would not have been in order. And yes, you can, John. John M. has asked if you can add letters and numbers together for the ID. You can, but what's advisable, if you want to do that, then you want to use, almost like in SharePoint, a lookup column. You want to say your column A and call ID number or ID something. And say it equals, your default value is JOHN and then the ID number. So you'll have John 1, John 2, John 3, John 4. And that is for more complex, maybe when we discuss it in like, the third version of this class.
Actually, Master Sergeant about but I understand it. I think he is listening.
Right. And thinking of large amount of data on how to sort the IDs easier. Yes. Now, it all depends on what data you have. If I have, let's say, a roster of every Army Reserve soldier, Green Suitor, and I type in the name Smith to search, I'm probably going to have more than one Smith, and I'm probably going to have more than one John Smith. So what Master Sergeant Johnson is alluding to is what is an easy way to search for something that makes it John Smith III with a middle initial of Echo that's in the 419th down in Sad Haven, Connecticut. All right. So there is ways to do that. Yes, Sergeant Johnson. So what I had to do to get back to my birthday listing, what I had to do is I had to go in and take my birthday and figure out what the birthday month is. And it's easily done once you get your fingers wet a little. And then I created the column birthday month. So I can add January, March, June, July, September, December, what the appropriate months are. And then I created my name. I'll put my name, my cell phone, and my birthday. And then once again, my all-important nut allergy, and then what cookies they like. Which I think Dad in June, he must be on my bad list because he has a nut allergy, and he said he likes peanut butter cookies. So.
Lots of people with nut allergies who know exactly how many cookies they can eat.
So this is a report off of a query. Even if you have a good idea on how each one works, it's going to initially be difficult to understand how they work together. I might know that a query is asking questions, and I might know that a report is outputting the data from that question into a readable format. But to understand that is great, but you got to really have an idea how they work together. And we're going to cover that in our Access 2 and 3 level classes. This is just an introduction. This is to show you what kind of data or what is easily done in Access and what it can be done or what it can do. Now you guys need to go out and open up Access and create a database and start playing with it, or import a spreadsheet, or what everybody likes to use it for, and this is what my primary use of Access is SharePoint. Access integrates with SharePoint. It utilizes the list ribbon across the top. There's two choices I'm going to cover real quick. One is export to Excel, and the other one is open with Access. Now, the names itself should explain. Did we drop somebody?
No, I'm gonna mute it.
It's pound 6, I think, or pound 86. The name itself expresses the differences between the two. When you export something, that usually means I'm taking a snapshot and I'm moving it to something else, correct? So I'm doing an export from SharePoint into Excel. Any data that's changed in SharePoint, as long as I am using the desktop client of Excel, it will refresh. But if I update anything in Excel, it's not going to refresh the SharePoint list. All right, so that's what is the limiting factor of export to Access. Now, if I open with Access, export to Excel, versus open with Access. When I open with Access, that just means I am taking the SharePoint list, which is actually, now we're getting deep, Sergeant Johnson, you'll enjoy this. SharePoint list is maintained in a SQL database. So really what I'm doing is I'm taking my Access database on my desk and I'm going straight to my SQL for that list. And all that data is available. And as I update the list, it's going to update my Access database. And as I update my Access database, it's going to update my SharePoint list. I use this all the time. When people ask questions, somebody says, well, I took 4 classes and I need to know when. I can go out and I can open it up in Access, create a quick query looking for that person's name, and I can tell them every time that they attended our training classes. Thank you. If you would, can you go to share screen real quick? Whoever owns it. So go to SharePoint real quick. Now it's in. It's turned screen, you can see.
Oh, yeah, I gotta pull it up.
Do screen 1. Who's got control, Mike? Who has control? Tiffany does. All right. Screen 1. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Good to go.
So go into our attendance roster. That'll work for now. Tiffany? Yeah. The people in the room, you're not going to see it because the way it's going on.
While that's popping up, Master Sergeant Johnson also says you mean opening with Access rather than Excel is better when in relationship to SharePoint?
Yes.
That's why I was trying to put it over there.
Yeah. But you're sharing an A-pen, so it doesn't. Yes. Opening in Access is much better than exporting to Excel. All right? So what we're going to do is Tiffany is showing a spreadsheet or a list of training. And this is our student list.
Now, this is our cyclical, this is people who just signed in with us.
Okay.
So if you haven't signed in, sign in.
If she opens it up in Access, it's going to ask her, do you want to link it Or do you want to snapshot it? And she wants to link it, you want to link it. That's a no-brainer because I want the data to be equal in both. So she's going to click OK. Now she has her list data in Access. If she were to go into cyclical attendance list, there's all the data from that class. Or for what just signed in. Now I can manipulate this anytime, any way I want. If, let's say, at the end of the month, we have to do a memo that gets signed, I can manipulate this data, export it and report, bring it into Word, and then have that signed.
Maybe.
No, it will be signed. I can do anything with this data. Now remember, when I do this, if I change Major McCoy's rank to Lieutenant Colonel, everywhere it is listed, it's going to show that. It's going to change. So this is the best way to open it up. I do not advise opening up a list in Excel just because you're limited on what you can do. All right? The best way to learn anything is by doing it. So open up a list that may be off of your My Site, so you don't crash the entire G3 web list. So open up, create a list in My Site, and then open it and play with it, and then do a refresh. See what happens. So that's how you open Access in a SharePoint list. Like I said, manipulating data, this is the best way to do it. A lot of times we try to stay in SharePoint and we try to build, I don't know about out in the field, Sergeant Johnson might do it a little bit. We try to build a list utilizing a formula in SharePoint to create something that we need to look at. Like, we need a roster of first name, last name, middle initial, when in the SharePoint list it's 3 different. In Access, then we can create, pull it, create the report, and then anytime we need it, it's there. Any questions on that? All right. You can go back to this slide. Yes, sir.
So,
Introduce yourself, please.
hello, I am Major Harris, the third of Continuous Process Improvement and Knowledge Management. Anything else?
No. I just want
And I am awesome. Thank you very much.
I just want everybody out in the field to know who's asking the question.
So you had mentioned that the access should be on the computer that you're working from and not somewhere else to update. So the information that is on SharePoint is only as current as the person that has it on their desktop.
No.
No?
No. If somebody goes into the list while you're working on Access, now Access is your database, it's on your system. So when you pull it down like we did, it's going to be it's not a snapshot, it's an actual link to it. So if John goes in and adds another name, she's going to get a little thing at the bottom and she just clicks it like we do in co-authoring, and then or refresh the page, and then it's going to be there.
Okay.
If she makes a change in Access database and John refreshes the SharePoint list, it's going to show there.
Gotcha.
So it's a two-way connection,
Okay.
and it's, to me, this is the smart way to open up list data, because like we said in the beginning, we're all using Excel to, okay, we're very bad at using, we say do this, okay, Tiffany's very bad at saying use this for data manipulation and use this for number manipulation. But as soon as we walk away from this class and we do it, the field does it, everybody does it, you're familiar with Excel, so you're going to go back to Excel and you can create your table, and then you're going to do what you did in Excel. Because, well, this, it needs to be done, and I understand this. But if you're manipulating data and where you have to take multiple tables or multiple worksheets and combine the data, we're working, I think, with G1 where they have multiple tables of data, and she needs to say, well, this information needs to equal this information, but these people don't have it, so we got to put this in there. For her to do that in Excel, she would have to almost go line by line, and it's 31,000 records.
It was 30,
So,
yeah.
31,000 records that she only needed just under 700 to fix. So we showed her how to pull that data together, build a query, and then export it. And now all she's got to do is take that query data and then update it wherever she needs to update it. Either in Access for a report, or maybe back to the original Excel spreadsheet, or however she got the original data. So it's a time saver. If it was a list, it'd be the same thing. Instead of trying to find blank on a list and then having to go through each record and updating it, or going to the quick view and updating it, I can go open it in Access, I can do my quick query, I can ask for certain information, and then I can update as needed. So, as long as we don't have any questions, last minute notes. Think of your database as a binder or a folder. It's a, I'm sorry, I used the word folder. It's like my daughter and moist. So it's that file cabinet that you have in the corner. That's your database. And each drawer of that file cabinet is a table. And in each table, is a folder. And in each folder is a record. The data is in the database utilizes those 4 objects that we talked about. And it treats each object as a separate document, which means if I do something to a report, in order for that report to be, let's say John and I are working on the same database, and I change a report output, as soon as I save it, John has to refresh it. The same thing is done with the records themselves, with the data. If I change something in that record, he has to do a refresh, and then it's there. No ifs and or buts. Access is the best way to do it. You have a question, sir?
Just going to say that for the field, if you work with certain sets of data from certain sources consistently, and you always have a process to fold it all into that big spreadsheet that you have to do, because I do it for equipment for the 4. If you figure out the formats of the data that you're getting, you can make Access do all that work for you. All you do is drop that Excel spreadsheet into a place, and it'll update all your reports, and then all you have to do is print them instead of going through. Right now I use a VLOOKUP to do it because a couple things have changed format on me, and so I'm still figuring all that out. But G-Army is not helping because I'm still figuring that one out. But yeah, if you have any repetitive task where you have to populate fields based on other fields, and you're doing it in Excel, if you can figure out how to do it in Access, it becomes a 2-click process. One to bring the data in, and one to apply it.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, if your reports are for certain items or pieces of equipment or whatever, you create the report once, then all you do is bring it in, sync it, and print your report. And it's, instead of spending, like I'm currently doing right now, a full day getting your tables right again because somebody changed something, you can do it pretty quickly, and then it's good until, of course, somebody makes a change again. But it'll save you a ton of work.
Right. And then also, if the individuals have access, let's say you put it on a shared drive and you build an input form and they're inputting that data, you can validate that data so it meets the requirements of that field. So if I want my birthday to be a 2-day field and a hyphen in a month, 3 month, and then a hyphen in a year, I can force that. Where in Excel, you're going to get, like you said, if somebody changed data or changes the format of something, it's a little bit harder. But in Access, and In Microsoft's world, and I'll leave it at that, Access is embedded in certain collaboration tools. But in USAR right now, it is not. That might change with something that's upcoming. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to start the fastest there yet. So Access is not incorporated into SharePoint right now. So I can put an Access database out on SharePoint in a document library, and then somebody can pull it down to the machine and then use it and then put it back. Or I can put it on a shared folder or in a shared drive that I can either, everybody has access to it or limit access to it, and then only those people have it. And with Access, you can go as far as soon as I click my personnel management database, it opens up a specific form, could be menus, and I'm limited. And then depending on how it's built, it's the same as SharePoint. If you don't have access to that data, you're not going to get that data. Access is very, very complex when you get down to some of what you can do. One of the projects I worked on a couple years ago was a personnel management database for Civil Task Force, JTF Civil Support up in Fort Eustis. And what they wanted is they wanted the ability of all the admin sections in their directorates to be able to update their personnel as they in and out process. And so what we did is we built a database. The main database was on G1's area, and then there was a child database out. And when somebody opened it up, it would pull in their data from the master, and then they would update it, and then when they'd save it, it'd go back. And it went to as far as creating TDY orders, appointment orders, declarations. So there's so much you can do with an Access database. Sergeant Johnson will say, I do have Visio, are you asking for a reason? As Sergeant Johnson would say, SQL is actually our mother database. That if you could get into SQL, that would be awesome, but we can't, so we have to use this Access.
The question above it is, can they create a graph based on the data you have created in Access, or will I need to stay in Excel to accomplish?
No, there is graphing capabilities in Access, and then as Sergeant Johnson had said as well, you can export it into Visio. But there is graphing, PowerPoint or Power Pivot capabilities, graph capabilities in Access as well.
Yeah, the report tools in Access are pretty robust. So once you figure them out, like I said, anything you have to repeat, as long as your data sources stay clean as far as structure, you can just pull it in and all your stuff, and then it's just opening the reports and printing. Instead of having to normalize the data in a spreadsheet by dragging stuff or doing VLOOKUPs and getting stuff to build it all in each time.
All right, we're at 54. This was supposed to be 45 with the open discussion. We have been discussing as we went. We are planning a Access level 2 and 3 where we get a little bit more into the creation of tables and the creation of queries, forms, and reports. This was an introductory. This was just for you to understand what is out there and what can be done. So if you want to unmute them for any questions. Do we have any more questions, comments in the room? Are they unmuted, Tiff?
Wait.
Yep, unmuted.
All right, out in the field on the conference, is there any questions or any comments?
Guess not.
You didn't really hang up.